I am joined today, actually, I'm joining the Chief of Staff of the Army here in the Pentagon, Quincy's own General James McConville. And General, thank you for having us here. I know you got a busy schedule, but appreciate you taking care of the time.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. It's honored to be with you today.
The military history of Quincy is remarkable, but we've chosen 18 generals since the Revolutionary War, and of course, you're one of the highest ranking of all the group. And what's fascinating to me is you and General Dunford grew up a couple of blocks from each other and knew each other growing up.
Yeah.
And I know we talked off for camera, but something about the water in Quincy, or is it something about the water in Marymount?
Yeah, I think it's something about the people in Marymount, and there's some incredible people. And as you said, I've known Joe Dunford for almost 50 years, and he comes from an incredible family. Interesting enough, a story, I actually acquired my first business from Joe Dunford. I bought his Patriot Ledger paper route early on in the days, but Joe has always been a person of incredible character, and he took that character from Marymount. I had a chance to serve in combat with him in Afghanistan and in Iraq and along the way, and there's no finer officer in the United States military than Joe Dunford.
I got a chance to get to know your parents over the years, and your father served on the planning board under Mayor Jim Sheets. He taught probably hundreds of thousands of kids how to learn to skate, Quincy Youth Hockey, remarkable parents. So you want to talk a little bit about growing up with mom and dad?
Yeah, I had great parents. My dad and my mom were very dedicated to the kids, and I think if we measured wealth by character, my parents would be some of the richest people in the world. Just very, very special. They gave us a great upbringing. They instilled in us what right and wrong was, and we certainly, had a chance to learn about those type things. But they certainly put us on the right path, and certainly wouldn't be here today without them.
Well, he showed recently, he was up to see me, and he showed me a picture of you dressed in a Navy uniform as a kid, and he said, I tried.
Well, there's always a little rebellion that goes on in the family, but what he did was interesting. He took me to West Point when I was about 10 years old, and one of the co-workers at the Gearworks, son, was a major at West Point. He showed us around West Point, and at the time, the people talk about primal cues. I'd seen that school, and I was very fortunate that Senator Kennedy would nominate me many years later, and I'd have a chance to go to West Point. That set me on the path I'm on today.
And you mentioned your father hockey. You were quite a hockey player yourself.
Well, certainly would have liked to be a better hockey player. We all grow it up, but I grew up like many of the kids. We used to skate. There used to be a marsh out behind Broad Meadows, and we all skated there, and came up through Quincy Youth, which was a wonderful program. They built the rink. I was there before the rink was built, and just some incredible parents that instilled in us, really, the good thing about hockey's a great sport for life. Not the fact you can be a professional hockey player, but you get knocked down and you get back up, and those who are successful in life overcome adversity, and they can take a hit if you want, and they get back up, and they keep on skating.
Well, my son, two of my kids played hockey, and the biggest day for my son, who ended up going to the Marine Corps, was when he could check. He reached that age where he could check. It was all about the contact with him. Now, what about baseball, soccer? Did you do any of the others?
Yeah, well, I played in Coke Club. That was my first baseball team, going down to Broad Meadows and playing athletics. And I played Little League. I played Babe Ruth, and so we played baseball. I played tennis growing up. We did some cross-country running. So we had a great opportunity. We also just played sandlot. We used to play on the park department, which you certainly know all about. We had great parks, and kids would get together, and then we played all types of athletics. We played basketball, we played football, we did all those type things. And you learn the importance of team sports, and you learn the importance of being fit and working with other people. And I think those are the type of attributes that work very well in the military.
It's very different today because everything is structured now with the kids, but you're right, we were kids, you went down, you met up with your buddies, depending on how many kids you had, you decided what you were going to play.
That's exactly right, and then you came home when the street lights came on. That's what the expectation.
You better be home.
You better be home, or someone would be telling you to come home. And so it was a great upbringing in Quincy.
So you said your first job was paperboy. Where'd that lead you to after that?
Well, we were talking about that before. I was very blessed to work for the city of Quincy. My first full-time job was the Quincy Sewage Department, and that was a good job because it was hard work, and I remember going down to the pumping station at the end of House Neck, and they had these grates, and we were in these waders, and we went out there, and we were actually shoveling some of the things that accumulated along the grates. And after we spent that day doing that, one of the the great mentors that worked at the Quincy sewage department said, "Jim, you want to go to school because you don't want to be doing this when you're 50 years old." So that was sage advice, and I took it, and it helped me get me where I am today.
And who'd have thought, right? At that
Who
time,
would have thought? No, never thought about that. Yeah.
I've read a little bit about your leadership, and you talk a lot about the modernization of the Army.
Yeah.
And it's quite a transformation of what you're dealing with today,
Yeah.
from what the old Army was. You want to talk a little bit about that and the challenges with that?
Yeah, I mean, what I argue is every 40 years the Army has to transform. It did it in 1940, right before World War II, when General Marshall had my job. And I came in the Army, graduated from West Point in 1981, and the Army was going through this major transformation, which is really all the doctrine, the organizations, the weapon systems, and the personnel systems we use today. So it's 40 years later, it's 2020, so we are embarking on another major transformation in the Army right now. And for us, it's not about fighting the last fight better, it's about being ready to win the next fight, and also being so ready that no one wants to fight us.
Now, I know when I called your father a few years ago
Yeah.
to talk to him about what we were doing to honor the generals, he quickly responded to me, "I hope you're doing something for Gordon Sullivan."
Yeah,
Just what he said. I said, "Of course, he's part of it."
Yeah.
Did you know General Sullivan? Were you in at the time when he was chief of staff?
I was.
Okay.
He's an incredible man, and we have a kind of nexus with General Sullivan. When he was a young boy, 3 years old, my great aunt used to actually babysit him. And in my quarters today, I have a picture of young General Gordon Sullivan, 3 years old, wearing my great aunt's Women's Army Corps hat, saluting, like that famous John F. K. Picture that some have seen. And he was an incredible leader in the United States Army. He was one of those visionaries that helped us come out of the Vietnam War and turn the Army into the Army we have today. And he's extremely well respected in the Army, in the military, and just an incredible officer.
I've got to know him a little bit because of the project we're working on, and he is a remarkable individual. And again, the water in Quincy, another incredible Quincy guy, and a long history in the city too, with his family. So we're looking forward to connecting with him. So, your service to, you're in the Army, West Point. Were you thinking along the lines, it's obviously you rose to the ranks because of your talent, your leadership, your character. But did you think about that along the way? Was it your goal to be a one-star? Was it your goal to reach a certain
No, I
level?
actually, no, I never thought of, even being a senior officer. I think I wanted to serve my country. I had the privilege of going to West Point, and with West Point you have a 5-year obligation, and as I went along, I just kind of fell in love with the people I served with. We're very blessed in the Army to have extraordinary men and women who are committed to this country. And they do incredible things. And so I just liked serving in the company of heroes, and I think that's what motivated me to stay.
Now, in your time, in your leadership positions, and you saw a lot of action yourself. Want to talk a little bit about that? Were there any moments that really stuck with you, whether it was people or individuals around you, or certain circumstances, or certain nations that you were in?
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of us of this generation, military-wise, we've all fought in Afghanistan. We've all fought in Iraq, and we've all experienced losses of great men and women. And the thing about combat is you find out a lot about people, and people come together. And you see ordinary people do extraordinary things. And I've seen that in many, many cases where young men and women have stepped up, run through withering fire to save their fellow soldiers or their fellow Marines or really their fellow servicemen. And just very, very honored to have the opportunity to serve with each and every one of them. They do incredible things for this country. And they continue to do it. I mean, you look at COVID and some, I've watched our medical professionals go into hospitals or set up alternate healthcare facilities to help defeat this virus that is killing many Americans. And so the Army doesn't just do combat, it does a whole bunch of things to help protect the nation. And when we protect the nation, it's not just against enemy soldiers, it's against threats like COVID, it's threats like storms, it's threats like wildfires, and the Army's here to
Well, the
serve
Army's
the
going to
people.
be one of the largest organizations in the world.
Well, it's pretty close. I mean, some can argue. I mean, when we take a look at our United States Army, a little over 1 million soldiers, about 240,000 civilian workers. We're in 140 countries around the world, preserving the peace and reassuring our allies and partners so we can enjoy the life that we have.
Yeah. Now, do you have any particular favorite general historically, or two, or?
Well, one of my favorites is two you mentioned. One is General Joe Dunford, incredible character and leadership. And it's interesting. I'd always, when I met Marines, I'd go, "Hey, do you know Joe Dunford?" Like, he'd be like a major, and I go, "Oh yeah, we know Joe Dunford. He's the future commandant of the Marine Corps." Yeah, and all along he had that type of reputation, and growing up in the military. And then General Gordon Sullivan was really a visionary for the Army, and very inspirational leader. So those are two that I can certainly talk about. And I take a look at people that sat in my chair here. Marshall was a great chief of staff of the Army. He led us through World War II. Eisenhower, in fact, this uniform I'm wearing, kind of, they call it the Eisenhower jacket, goes back. And all along, every generation has its heroes. We often talk about the greatest generation being World War II. I would argue that's probably true. I know many of soldiers that have served during that time in a division I command, the 101st Airborne Division. But what I've learned is every generation has its heroes, and extraordinary young men and women step up during crises every single time it's happened in the history of this country.
You've certainly seen a transition in the respect for women in the uniform today.
Yeah.
That wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
But I also know you're under a lot more pressure in the times we're in, with the social changes that we're dealing with as a nation. That's also must be a challenge for the organization.
Well, I mean, what we're trying to do in the Army is we do the right thing the right way. We want to be an inclusive organization where everyone feels that they belong and they have the ability to rise to the highest ranks. And I think we're doing that. We've opened up all our positions to women right now. I was in the second class with women at West Point. In fact, two wonderful women from my high school at Archbishop Williams went to West Point with me, and they were very inspirational. But we need to, in the Army, represent the nation, and we want everyone to have an opportunity to succeed. I don't think there's any better place to start. You're a working class person, come to the military, come to the Army. You have an opportunity to grow, get education, and whether you stay a couple years or stay 40 years, it's a great opportunity.
I know that the city certainly has a long history. When you look at the amount of citizens that served in each of the conflicts and wars,
Yeah.
we're generally ahead of what the normal per capita rate is.
Yeah.
And I think it's true of the Boston region. But some of the folks that may be watching at some point want to talk a little bit about leadership.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole theme of really honoring each of you individuals is really about the leadership. I remember when I spoke to General Dunford initially about this, he said, very humble, and much like each of you that I met, kind of was dismissive, and I don't know, it's about the men and women in uniform. I said, yeah, but it's also about the leadership. I mean, those men and women have to be led. And so he finally succumbed and agreed to do this with us. And of course I agreed to include a quote from him in the park about the men and women in uniform. But anyone in any walk of life, whatever they're going, I want to talk a little bit about leadership and how that plays into the future.
Yeah, I think leadership is very important, but I do agree with Joe. It's really about the men and women that serve that really make the difference. That's where the rubber meets the road. They're the ones that execute the orders. But for leaders, I look for 4 qualities in leaders, and I think 2 are more important than others. But certainly we want leaders that are competent, that know their job, they're masters of their profession. We need leaders that are committed. They're willing to put the extra work in. They're passionate about what they're doing, and those are 2 things that I think are necessary for leaders, but they're not sufficient. 2 other things I think are really important when we talk about leaders is character. We need leaders of character that do the right thing the right way for the right reasons, not for personal gain, not for anything else. They do it for the right reasons. And the 4th is they care. They truly care about the service men and women that they lead. I look at the soldiers that are in my formations. Their parents have set their sons and daughters to us, and we have a sacred obligation to take care of them. And I look at it through 2 prisms, if you will. One is the Chief of Staff of the Army, but also as a parent of 3 kids that serve, 2 sons and daughters. And I expect our leaders to take care of everyone's sons and daughters like their own, and take care of these extraordinary young men and women that are being sent to the Army from parents who really care about them.
Now, you mentioned your 3 kids. Was that a surprise when each of them went in, or were you taken a little back? Did you try to talk them out of it?
Yeah, well, I certainly did not push them in that direction. It's really interesting how they came about it. Growing up in the military, they've moved around, so they're very familiar with the military. And my oldest son actually went up to this program at West Point, which, if you get in the program, there's a very good chance that you will have the opportunity to go to school. And he goes, Dad, I don't want to go to West Point. I go, good. Don't go to West Point unless you really want to go to West Point. So went to a great school in Boston called Boston College. Took an ROTC scholarship, and wasn't too crazy about it first, but he just, again, he liked what it was all about. So he's still in the Army today. My daughter is a clinical social worker. She had no desire in college to go in the military, and then as she went along, she got a master's degree, and she said, I really care about people. She's got a great skill set of providing behavior health capabilities to the military, so she's doing that, and she's doing wonderful. And then my youngest son went to Boston University. He went on a ROTC scholarship also, which we appreciate, and he's serving as a Black Hawk pilot in a special operations aviation unit. So all 3 of them have found their own paths, and the fact that they're willing to serve, I'm very, very proud of them. And again, we don't know how that will end up, but one thing about serving is whether you serve 2, 3, 4 years or whatever, or 40 years, if you serve honorably, no one ever can take that away from you, and that's a very important part of their life, just like your son's life, that he'll never forget the fact that he was a Marine, and he's going to take that with him with his rest of his life. So I'm very, very proud of all those who serve.
And many that, certainly I see it as the appointing authority in the city of Quincy, many of our police and firefighters were veterans.
That's right.
They served in many in the Army, many in the Marine Corps, and I think that gives them an advantage joining an organization like the police or the fire with the training and discipline, and so that's been a help, I think.
No, we actually encourage that. What we want, at least for our soldiers to do, is come in, serve your enlistment. Could be 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and then we want you to be soldiers for life, and go out there and take advantage of the training we gave you, take advantage of the GI Bill, go to school, be great citizens, serve your country, your city, in any way you can. And a special thanks to our first responders, or our police officers, our firemen, our EMTs that are out there. They do a great job, and a lot of times they don't get the credit that they deserve. I've been places where you don't have a good police force, you don't have a good fire force. If you look at some of these countries that, like Afghanistan and Iraq, where they don't have rule of law, it really makes a difference to have great men and women that are willing to serve our country, wearing as police officers, as firemen and firewomen, and as EMTs. It really makes a difference for the population.
No question about it. I mean, we talk frequently in government, local, what is the most important thing we do? And And I say that people have to feel safe in their home and in person.
That's right.
After that, educating our young people, I think, is secondary. But if they don't feel safe at home, then we've got a real problem. We've seen that in some of the cities across our country, but Quincy is, we're blessed. I remember a number of years ago, you were a one-star general, and you agreed to be our Grand Marshal for the Flag Day Parade. So we've had you as a Grand Marshal, General Dunford as a Grand Marshal, General Ronald Rand, the Air Force, as a Grand Marshal. So in fact, we had General Patton, the son, was the General Marshal, either 75 or 76,
Right.
Which was fascinating as well. So that's another one of those special events in Quincy Flag Day that's unique to Quincy.
Yeah.
What is it about Quincy that is so special, General?
Yeah, again, I talked a little bit, but I think what's special about Quincy is the people. I mean, they're proud people, they're patriotic people, they're hardworking people, they have tremendous character, and I think they just represent the best of America, and that's what Quincy's all about.
General, I know we talked a little bit about leadership. Part of the reason we're honoring you and the other generals is about service as well. And so those young people that may be thinking about service, whether it's military or otherwise, would you have some advice for them?
I think everyone should seek the opportunity to serve. They may not know it now, but when they're older and they're talking to their grandkids and they ask them what they did during their life, what they will be is most proud of their service. It could be in the military, it could be in the the civilian world, or whatever it is. And when people talk about military service, people ask me, why should I serve in the military, or why should I consider serving? Well, first of all, it provides you a purpose, to be part of something that is bigger than yourself. And second, it puts you on a team, and a team of one of the most respected institutions in the country. And third, it gives you a great opportunity to go to school. I'm very blessed. I got a chance to go to school that the military paid for. All my kids in some way or another have received either schooling or training through the military. And finally, no matter what you do in life, no one will ever be able to take away from you the fact that you served your country. And it's very, very important.
General, I know we talked a little bit about a higher number of people that have served from Quincy. Would you have a message for the veterans, both from Quincy and beyond?
Yeah, I just want to thank them for their service. As I travel around the military, I meet lots of young men and women that have served in the military from Quincy. We have many famous officers and non-commissioned officers and soldiers that have served that won't necessarily get a statue or get a place in the park. But what they did is extremely important. What they did made a difference. And so to all the veterans out there, I know what you've done, and I truly appreciate your service and your commitment to this nation.
General, I know you know the history of the generals that we're honoring, and there's another connection. We talked about connections in Quincy, but General Sweeney and your dad. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's a great story. My dad, during World War II, was about 15 years old, and he also was a paper boy during that time. And as you know, that General Sweeney was the pilot of the aircraft that conducted the raid into Nagasaki. And the way his mother found out about it, at least as the story is told, is my dad was delivering the paper to her house and said, "Hey, Mrs. Sweeney, your son was just over Nagasaki," and
Wow.
I thought that was a pretty interesting story. Yeah.
Did your father say if she was a good tipper?
Yeah, I'm sure she was. Yes, a great woman. Yeah.
And that was the Montclair days.
Yeah, yeah.
And Dick Stratton is joining us for the event.
Oh, good,
and
good.
Dick was also a Montclair guy.
That's right.
And talks well about
Well,
General Sweeney.
he's a great hero too. Dick Stratton and what he did for the country, and a special thanks to our Vietnam heroes. When we take a look at today, our soldiers can't walk into a restaurant, a shopping mall, or an airport, a sports arena without people thanking them for their service. And that was not necessarily the case for our Vietnam veterans. And so I'd just like to thank them today, and people like Dick Stratton and everyone else that did incredible things for our country. And like I said, every generation has its heroes, and Vietnam was no different.
Thank you, General. Again, on behalf of the people of Quincy, we thank you for your incredible leadership and service to our nation, and look forward to the event.
Thank you.